So we're up to Siman Mem Vav Sif Dalad. Very Seidistic halachas. The Mechaber says, Tzarech levarach b'chol yom. In addition to all the brachas that he mentioned before, you also have to mention Shalei Yasani Oivik Kechavim, Shalei Yasani Goy, Shalei Yasani Eved, V'Shalei Yasani Isha. Now before we get to the Ramah, because he's going to address a convert, the Mishnah Berurah says, V'yizar Shalei Yavarech Sha'asani Yisrael. Right? We say Shalei Yasani Goy, we don't say Sha'asani Yisrael. K'moishi Yesh Be'ezah Sidurim. Ki yesh oimim shebezel lo yichol varach shuv. Shalei Yasani Eved, v'lo yesh l'sayani Isha. Because if you say, right, the process is an evolution. As we'll see in a moment, if you go out of order, it could potentially be an issue. When you're blessing Hashem, you begin Shalei Yasani Goy, then Shalei Yasani Oved, then Shalei Yasani Isha. The evolution is, you're not thanking Hashem because I'm not a ger, I'm not a goy, I'm not a woman. It's purely mitzvahs based. Okay, so you're starting off thanking Hashem that I'm not a goy, I have mitzvahs. Okay, well, avodim, Evet Kanani is mechayiv in mitzvahs shazman garama, so are women. So you say, okay, Shalei Yasani Oved. So now you'll say, meaning I have more than that. Now, the fact that you mentioned that by Eved, they're also mevuzah. So you say, even a woman, Shaloi Yasani Isha, no, I want taryag, I want full taryag. If you say Shasani Yisrael, then you're done. The Mishnah Berurah then says, Akum, v'mbirach b'tchila Shaloi Yasani Isha. If let's say you went out of order and you said Shaloi Yasani Isha, yesh oimrim, the opinion of the Magen Avraham is the shuvla yivarich, Shalei Yasani Akum, Shalei Yasani Eved. Ki Isha div mishnayim, u'meila nichol haydach, chlam esayimana. If you go out of order and you say Shalei Yasani Isha first, then you're done. Because, according to the Magen Avraham, because the whole point is, once you already think Hashem, you're not an Isha, kal v'chomer, you're not a guy, and kal v'chomer, you're not an Eved. Now, by the way, this is very similar to what the Mechaber is going to address in a moment. The Mechaber is going to, in a few moments, we'll see, the Mechaber holds that if instead of if you did Zaykif Kifufim before Matir Asurim, you can't make the bracha anymore. Because once you're already thanking Hashem that you're able to stand, Kavachayim, you could sit up. That's the Magen Avraham. And he says, V'chein bir shaloy yasani ove, lo yichol avar shaloy yasani goy. Aval harbe achronim cholkam al zeh. V'chein hiskim el yirabah, to yichol avarich. But many achronim are choylik, and they hold that you could. If you look in the Sharatzian, Marshalu Bach, Gam bebirchas Zaykif Kifufim, Kol shekin b'zeh. Meaning the same way they argue by Zaykif Kifufim, as we'll see in a moment, they argue by this as well. I think they hold that it's even better because over there, you could argue that they're not the same. Meaning, you could argue that even though we paskin like the Mechaber, and we'll see in a moment, that if you said Zaykif Kefufim, you can no longer say Matir Asurim, you could argue these are different. Because Zaykif Kefufim and Matir Asurim, you're thanking Hashem for mobility. Once you've already thanked Hashem for the ability to stand, I don't have to thank Hashem for sitting up. These are two separate things. This is thanking Hashem for my status as a human being. So yes, I thanked Hashem that I wasn't an Isha. I still should take the time and thank Hashem that I wasn't a guy. You could argue that they're not the same. And that's why by the bracha of Matir Asurim and Zaykif Kefufim, the Mishnah Berurah's psak is don't make the bracha, even though it's machlokes safek bracha. Over here he doesn't say that. The implication is that the Mishnah Berurah actually agrees that you could make the bracha because he ends off v'chein hiskim el yirabah v'divrei chayim. I mean, he quotes all the achronim and he doesn't say safek bracha slaka like he does say later on. Now, what about a convert? So says the Ramah, afilu ger hayachal levarich kol. A convert can say all the brachas, but he can't say Shalei Yasani Goy. Shari Haya Goy, because he was a guy. Okay. Women say the bracha of Shersani Kirtzane. Now, when it comes to a convert, so what do they say? So they don't say Shalei Yasani Goy. So Pashib Pshat, I'm reading the Mechaber, is they skip that bracha, just completely limited. The Mishnah Berurah says, Sheyomer Shasani Ger. Demikri Asiya. They could say Shasani Ger. Kidchsiv v'gam hanefesh asher asu b'char. And asiya is applicable to a ger because it says that Avram Avinu was asu gerim. Okay. V'yesh cholkim b'zeh v'taimam d'lo shaykh lemer shasani d'hagir lehoisa kimetzad b'chirasa hatoyva shebachar b'dasa emes. Meaning, so who's the first opinion? The first opinion said that I think it was the Bach. This opinion says no, you can't say shasani ger. How could you say thank Hashem for asani ger? Hashem is not the one who's making you a ger. I made myself a ger. And therefore, they disagree. Now, there is a third opinion. It's not brought down over here. The Balatanya, that's how I use this Mishnah Berurah. They bring down the Balatanya Shita. Balatanya brings down on the bottom that he actually says you could say Shalei Yasani Goy. Why? Because he says, Al Pi Kabbalah, the bracha of Shalei Yasani Goy is not that I was born a Jew and not a Goy. It's that every morning, when Hashem sends me my neshama back, I don't get the neshama of a Goy mixed in. That the klipa of a Goy's soul The Nefesh Bahamas, they don't have Nefesh Lukus. Nefesh Bahamas, their Nefesh Bahamas don't latch onto my Nefesh Bahamas. So if that's the case, then even a convert can make the same bracha, because Baruch Hashem, every day I got the neshama back. There is also a second svara. The Chida says, it's a famous teaching in the Chida. The Chida says that a convert is a non-Jew with a Jewish soul. He was born with a Jewish soul, and that motivates him to make the. That's why he famously said it's katan shenis gadel, right? Child that became an adult. What is in the Gemara? Ger shenis gayer. It shouldn't be ger shenis gayer. It should be goy shenis gayer. So the Chida famously said, and the Rabbi also used to say the same thing. He says, no, it's taka ger. He was born a ger. He just said, so if that's the case, then maybe you could say it. But it happens to be, the Mishnah Berurah doesn't mention this, so I guess Safek brachas that they should just skip it. Okay, he brings down later on that a mamzer can say all these brachas. Fine. Let's just run through it weiter. Hey, im kadam uberach zaykiv kefufim kaidim shebirach mater asurim lo yirachenu. If you made the bracha of zaykiv kefufim before mater asurim, you can no longer say mater asurim, because as we said before, you already thank Hashem for standing up, then you don't have to thank Hashem for sitting up. Says the Mishnah Berurah. As we saw before, there are those that disagree and they say no, the order doesn't matter. But safek brachas lahakal, you should not make the bracha because of prima godin toiv sheyira sheyishma achar kach miachar bracha v'chaven lotzes v'yotzim manasha. It's better if you to catch someone who hasn't said the brachas yet, have them say these two brachas in the proper order and have you in mind, and that's good. He says in B'shasha Amar Baruch Ata Hashem Haisa Kavanas Levarach Zakiv Kefufim Yisayim Zakiv Kefufim Avagav Da'az Lo Yivarach Mater Asurim. If let's say you said Baruch Ata Hashem and you were thinking Zakiv Kefufim, don't go Mater Asurim, because you should say Baruch Ata Hashem. You should conclude the bracha that you were thinking when you said Baruch Ata Hashem. Say Zakiv Kefufim, and you won't be able to say Mater Asurim.
It's a halakha. You have to be aware of what bracha you're saying.
Correct. Meaning, so it's better to continue as opposed to swapping it so you could go proper order. Okay. Fine. Let's go weiter. These are, actually we'll run through them. In B'shasha Gil Berchas Pakeich Ivrim, B'Ratzel L'Sayim Pakeich Ivrim, Nichshel B'Shayna V'Sayim Malbish Arumim, U'B'Tach Dedim Nizker V'Sayim Pakeich Ivrim. You were going to say Pakeich Ivrim. You were supposed to say Pakeich Ivrim, but then you ended up accidentally saying Mater Asurim, and then he said, oh no, Pakeich Ivrim. Yeshem D'Yoytzim Zayidei Berchas Pakeich Ivrim. Ki B'Zeh Oker Siyumei Rishon. You fixed the Teichad Didi, but it's fine. V'Yish Mestapkim B'Zeh. Okay. Fine. Let's go back to these. Are very, very detailed halachas. He says, "Avol b'shasha Amar Baruch Ata Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam chashav gam kim l'sayim malbish harumim v'achar sh'sayim malbish harumim nizker b'teich dibur pekech ivrim l'kul yalma yotzei berachas malbish harumim v'choiz mevarach pekechim." Meaning, if you thought malbish harumim, you said malbish harumim, and then you b'teich dibur messed it up, you're yaitza, because at least you said the proper bracha originally. Keina said the ma'akim. V'chein chol brachas hashachar. Okay, fine. Vav. I want to go through till Tess, if that's okay. Vav, yesh noigim levarich hanoisim liyoif koyach, ve'ein dvareihem niron. They should not be saying hanoisim liyoif koyach. Achamin posh b'nei ashkas leimer, but we say it. Do you say hanoisim liyoif koyach? Yeah. Okay. So the Mishnah Berurah says, what's the issue? Mishnah Berurah says, "Rasulullah baskar shemu malchus, va'afilm hayanir kol alayla gam kein yesh levarich hanoisim lefi mashi yinoy." Meaning, I guess apparently it was not originally a bracha, Hanoisim liyav koyach. I guess originally it was Baruch Hanoisim liyav koyach, and then they started adding Hashem's name. Okay, I'm not sure exactly what the. Okay, weiter. Oh, just because stam, it's not part of the. It's not. It just wasn't part of the list of the Gemara. They bring them the Shari Tshuva. He says, because Arizal said, it must be this is the Ratzon Hashem to say this bracha. Okay, I guess because it wasn't included in the list from the Gemara. Okay, Zayin yesh na'igim levarach brachas acheres neisafas aleilu v'tosu biyadam. Some started adding other brachas. No. We don't just start thanking Hashem for our morning routine. Okay, fine. That's the issue with the Noisel Koyach. It's not from the Gemara; it's from the Goinim. Ches. This is actually very sadistic. This is a major machlokes. I think Sfard Mashkenazim, and it's Negeya Shavuos. Kol habrachas elum lo nischayev ba'achas mehen. Let's say you did not do the thing that would be triggering it. Kigoyin shalei shama tarnagol. You didn't hear a rooster. Oy shalei holach. Oy loy lovash. Oy loy chogar. Oy ma'isa bracha b'lo yasker Hashem. You say it without Hashem's name. That's the Mechaber's opinion. Says the Ramah. B'yesham dafil lo nischayev ben mevarach oisan. Ramah says, no, you could say the bracha b'shem malchus, even if you weren't mechayiv in the oisei inyan. De'eina bracha dafka al atzman. El Mavarch HaKadosh Baruch Hu bara tzarchei ha'olam. You're not thanking Hashem for you. You're thanking Hashem that it exists. So I didn't wear shoes. Okay, but you're thanking Hashem that that shoes are a thing. I know it's negay. I know Chabad happens to be, if I'm not mistaken. We'll get to in a second. So again, Tisha B'Av Yom Kippur. They don't say Shas Li Kol Tzarki. Tisha B'Av. Because I'll pick up all not. Let's just run through the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah says, "Ayin b'sefer El Yerabah shekosaf de birchas elakayin neshama o birchas amaver sheina ein levarach mayanir kol halayla." Because if you're near kol halayla, it's not negay of those things. Upri megad the mishari tshuva heshir dvar b'tzarchiin umaske b'shari tshuva diyer l'shmaya elo shnei brachas mi'acher v'yichaven lotzes. So that's the Mishnah Berurah brings down a shita that's relevant to this, not to say hamav rishena l'kain neshama on Shavuos night. Better to have someone be mitzi you. They do bring down on the side of mine that the Balatanya says that the minig is to say it and the minig pasha is to say it. That's Chabad says it. Loy neschayev. Bafil midbar shen shemei kol tagav mevarach. Sum mevarach berachas pekechiv mechein cherish. All these things. Again, can say all these brachas because the opinion of the Ramah is that you're able to say it even if you're not mechuyev v'oisei davar.